Welcome to ICSOM's 60th annual conference, where we are celebrating 6 decades of advocacy for our orchestras. I wonder if our original founders, the musicians and union activists from Baltimore Symphony, Boston Symphony, Chicago, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Detroit, Indianapolis, Los Angeles, the Metropolitan Opera, Minneapolis, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Rochester, St. Louis, and Toronto could have envisioned that all that time ago that ICSOM's member orchestras would more than triple in number since that initial meeting in 1962.
On behalf of Local 56 officers and executive board, we do welcome you here, ICSOM, and we're so happy to have you. We're very, very, very proud of our orchestra. In 1962, I was 2 years old. So I'm 62 years old now, and I'm hosting this. This is pretty cool. So thank you once again for coming, and enjoy your stay. Thank you.
Orchestras, music feed our souls in a way that cannot be done through any of the traditional measures. It's why I personally made the choice 4 years ago to step away from what I was doing to feed my own soul and hopefully be able to add all of that and spread that across the organization in a way that would be institutionally strong for years and generations and decades to come. So this all leads to the question then of where really is our industry headed? And I come back again to those four elements: connection, inclusion, collaboration, and innovation, and the idea of the village. I believe in possibilities. I hope you all do too, because the possibilities and what is in front of us is an incredible opportunity that will shape our society and can shape our individual lives in a way that is probably unprecedented in the last couple of generations.
It gives me great pleasure to do this because this is our 5th year to have this presentation. We started this back in 2018 in Cincinnati, I believe. And with today's orchestras, we will have now featured 34 of our orchestras on stage to describe to you some interesting projects that we've had this year. And we have 5 that have been selected to speak today. And it's really interesting to remember that the projects you're going to hear really reflect that as an orchestra, we're really not operating in a bubble. We really reflect what's going on in the world around us.
What led to the project was a pretty horrible situation that happened in the community of Buffalo. Hopefully, the other stories that the other people will describe will be more positive than mine, but it was a necessary situation for us to present this concert. We felt back, you may recall, back in May of this year, May 14th, there was a very horrific shooting in the community of Buffalo, and a 18-year-old self-proclaimed white supremacist went into a grocery store on the east side of Buffalo with the intent of killing as many black people as he possibly could. Went in there and murdered 10 members of that community. And you know, we all hear about these stories, but when it happens in your own community, it's a whole different thing. You know, when we hear about them nationally, it's you know, it's in the news for a few days, but when it's in your own community, it's something that changes the landscape and the dynamic of the community greatly for decades.
It was started about 10 years ago by 2 women, Alice Hong and Grace Summer. They are alumni of the Atlanta Symphony Youth Orchestra. And Grace Summer is the daughter of Doug Summer, who some of you may have known. He was a bass player in the Atlanta Symphony for a long time. And it's a collaboration between current and former Atlanta Symphony Youth Orchestra members and current ASO members.
It didn't start out as being any attempt at doing a diversity project or anything like that. A violinist with the orchestra came to our music director a couple seasons ago and said that they had heard this composer's music at, I believe, a festival or something, and they thought that Michael should consider commissioning a piece from this person. And so as it was explained by Michael, it started with a chamber piece that was performed during our pandemic season with a small orchestra, a small audience, but got very good reception. And so they followed it up with a full orchestra commission, which was presented in 3 concerts at the end of this past season.
There are a few reasons why this concert took place. Interestingly, our concert hall is named for Joseph Meyerhoff, who was our board chair back in the 60s and 70s, maybe 70s and 80s, and whose money helped build our concert hall in 1983. His family continues to support us, has supported us for the last several decades. He was born in Ukraine.
This is a 20-year project we're talking about, or over 20 years. Back in 2000, it became known that that this movie theater, the Grand Theater, was being sold to anybody who wanted it for $1. And of course, if you were going to buy it for $1, you needed to maintain it and do something with it. So we did an acoustical test. Our stage manager at the time built us a temporary stage, and we trooped in there, and we just with the raw building, there were no improvements. It was a mess. It was a big mess. It had been neglected for years. And we played a few things, and we had the opportunity to go up into the balcony to listen, and everybody was thrilled how, oh my gosh, I can hear everyone. There aren't any balance problems. It's a beautiful, warm sound. And this is with no improvements. This is while it's still a mess. So of course, everybody, was really excited about the possibility of this being a new, designated symphony hall.
So we'll open with the question for our panel, why do we need to re-engage the orchestra? So you can imagine the situation you're in and the problems you've had, but I wanted them to tell you from their perspective why in the middle of a pandemic they chose to do this work and the challenges that they had and what success they had in re-engaging the orchestra.
We discovered, as the orchestra committee, we discovered that there was actually a strong desire within the group to do this type of work, because I think one of the challenges our organization has faced for many years is a sort of lack of public visibility. And so we, in a way, sort of led by example, or sort of showed, be the change you want to see, right? And so that's kind of was the impetus for starting our community concert series that we started last August.
One of the members of the committee who's active, finding someone and talking with them about what they're interested in, where they sort of see the direction of the orchestra going and how they specifically think that they could help. So we've had good success really tailoring our engagement efforts to one-on-one with musicians.
It shows that over time, if you stick with these things, there may be a payoff that you're not expecting. So it's in some ways for us, it's about casting a wide net, and that I think that's true in our orchestra and in our community.
Before COVID, we had the town of Paradise kind of blow up in California. I don't know if you all remember that, but we had people in our orchestra who had family that were affected by that fire, that lost their homes and barely escaped with their lives. So this was very close to us. And at the same time, a lot of Napa Valley had burned up, and we also have a lot of donors and board members that are involved in the wine business. So our communities are really hurting, and we did put together the orchestra put together a benefit concert for the fire victims and donated all the money to the United Way.
We also continue a relationship with an organization called Miriam's Kitchen, which is just a couple blocks away from the Kennedy Center. They're more than a soup kitchen. Their mission is to help end people who are experiencing homelessness, to end chronic homelessness. So it's very career driven. And 4 or 5 times a year, we go over to Miriam's during dinner, and we provide dinner music for them. This was inspired back, for those of you who were at the 2015 conference in Philly, when we went to the Broad Street Ministry. We were inspired by that, and we took it back to DC, and that we kept doing that during the pandemic, and we were able to do outside music while their guests had dinner. And Miriam's has become so fond of us that we're now we're an integral part of their galas.
ICSOM's DEI committee has reached a new level of vibrancy and activity this year. In June, ICSOM launched a new monthly video series called Musician Profiles, Celebrating Racial Diversity, of which I'm proud to be the host. These one-on-one interviews focus on hearing and lifting the words of ICSOM musicians of color, their experiences, and how they view the need for racial diversity within our orchestra.
Whereas the International Conference of Symphony and Opera Musicians was founded in 1962 with the mission to promote a better and more rewarding livelihood for the skilled orchestral performer and to enrich the cultural life of our society. Now, therefore, I, Rosalind Bliss, Mayor of the City of Grand Rapids, do hereby proclaim August 24th as ICSOM Day in Grand Rapids. And I welcome all conference participants and city residents to join in celebrating the many musical and cultural contributions that orchestral performers make and to reflect and appreciate the broader arts community, which truly makes our city a vibrant and beautiful place to live, visit, and enjoy.
Our annual conference is a time to listen and learn, observe and ask, and be inspired to make a difference in your orchestra. For 60 years, ICSOM has been a resource to assist professional musicians. But know that our goal this week is not to let the conversation end here. In other words, what happens in Grand Rapids does not stay in Grand Rapids. We are counting on you, our ICSOM delegates, to communicate the information we share here to your committees and to your musicians back home. So thank you for attending the 60th Annual ICSOM Conference, for the worthy cause of the betterment of our orchestras, and for going forth as inspiring ambassadors of our profession.
The future of ICSOM is in our hands. We are the living network that connects our orchestras to each other, and we are the voice within our union that represents those orchestras. Let's make use of it and see what we can accomplish together. Thank you.